Yep, stack. Triple threat.
Expected value.
Now take what you learn, go out there, and get stacked.
What up, Gripsters and random YouTubers? Evan here for Gripst.com. Very excited to be back with another hand history review. Yes! HH is learning! Winning. It's that good shit. I know it's been a while, a few weeks. A lot of good stuff has been happening. So just before I get into the hand history, I want to give you guys a very quick update on what's been going on with Gripst.com, both the site and the community. So great news, the site is in the works, in the heavy works. Should be ready in about 2 months, maybe a month and a half, and it's gonna look fucking fantastic when it's ready. Believe me, guys and girls, it's worth the wait. The community, it's growing. I'm really happy to say the community is growing. We just hit 25,000 subscribers on the weekend, and that's been a dream of mine for a long time to hit that milestone. So I'm really excited. And on the topic of the community growing, we now have our own official day, for those of you who aren't aware, and that's Free Money Friday, which happens every Friday night at 1800 Grand Munich time. So what Free Money Friday is, it's when the whole team gets together. We play home games on PokerStars. I'll put the info in the description. There's an open event, a high roller, and a super high roller. Plus, we have a webcam tournament where everyone can like see each other. And we're working on getting more tournaments as well for everybody, including the Americans. Also, to keep things fun, I got a stream that runs during the entire session, which you can catch at twitch.tv/Gripst. And there I give away free stuff, free money, free t-shirts. We've been mixing up all kinds of giveaways. It's a great place to come hang out. It's a great place to get to know some of the other people in the community. And yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. So to celebrate 25,000 random YouTubers turned subscribers, I wanted to switch things up a bit. So this tournament is the first one we're going to review that is from a US friendly site, and it's 6max. So this hand history comes from our boy Hugo, who plays 6max no limit for a living. So we're probably going to see some pretty good play, and he's let me know we're going to see some unorthodox play as well. It's a $215 6max with a 40K guaranteed prize pool, so I believe he took around 12 to 15K home for his efforts. And this was from the Black Diamond Poker Open, the BDPO, which is Bovada's kind of like W Coupe, and it's extremely soft. So just a brief note on those. Anytime there's a tournament series going on, if you were considering taking a shot, that would be the time to do it. So we're talking about W Coupes, F Tops, Micro Millions, Micro Masters, BDPO, GSPO, E Coupe, I Pops, Poker Fest, Poker. The list goes on. Anyway, those are the best times to take a shot. Like if you want to play your first $20 or your first $50, your first $100, $200, $500 buy-in, the best time to do it is during a tournament series, because during those tournament series there are more satellites run to these main events, which mean there are more, weak players or players who are going to be playing out of their comfort zone, out of their comfort level, and as well with the bigger prize pools, or with a larger amount of players, the larger field, the bigger the prize pool is going to be as well. So main reason series are great is because the fields are just softer on average, and the other reason they're great is that the prize pools are bigger, and generally the structures are better too, and as good players we like good structures. Anyway, that's been like a 4-minute intro, and you guys are like, dude, fucking Grips, like it's nice to have you back, but we wanted you back so we could watch some hands. So can we see some hands? Yes we can. We start out with the 10-7 off and not going to get involved with that. So as the players who play on it would know, oh, we get to see their cards every hand. That's cool. Bovada is an anonymous site, so everyone's just going to be named Hero, UTG1, UTG2, UTG, whatever. So we won't be able to carry reads with us from table to table, unfortunately, but the anonymousness of the site, it's kind of cool, and that other people can't have reads on you, and that whoever pays like really good attention is gonna know what's up, and most people won't, because you don't remember. It's hard to differentiate player 7, player 3, player 2. So here with 2 overcards, an inside straight draw, and a backdoor flush draw, we lead out at the pot, and I think this is a really nice play. The guy who's limping the button can have a pretty wide range, and if he didn't connect with this flop with a pair, he may just fold to our lead. He's not going to be super likely to float, although he might. But even if he does, there are a lot of cards that can come on the turn that we can continue betting on, like any jack, any 10, any spade, 9s, 8s, 6s as well. So that's a lot of the deck that we can continue betting on where we'll have equity. And I like that Hugo takes the lead in this pot, which is kind of like an orphan pot. Like the guy limped in the button. No one has the betting lead. No one has shown a huge amount of interest in this hand. So to even have the gut shot is enough to just say, hey, I'm going to take a stab at this pot, and if someone wants to play with me, cool. I prefer that they didn't, but if they do, no big deal. I have outs to improve. I have a lot of cards I can continue betting on. And of course, as we saw Hugo do, he's willing to shut down if he gets a little bit of resistance and doesn't improve. So here he opts to take the hand to showdown with bottom pair of 3s. They're good. We'll remember the dealer played the King 4 suited real weak and real weird, but now he's UTG +2, so pretty tough to remember that. Here we come in with a 3-bet, which I like. I think flatting's also an option. We're definitely going to be pretty far ahead of the button's opening range. He's probably going to be playing anywhere from 30 to 50%. And taking the lead with a hand that's probably the best hand is never a bad idea. So anyone who hasn't played on Bovada, if you're from the States, this is the site to play on. It is obviously weird doing the whole anonymous tables thing and not being able to keep your player notes from session to session and not being able to use a HUD, but overall it makes for a more casual, kind of a more fun environment, which attracts more gambly type players. Let me hold that thought for a minute, because we just turned the inside straight draw. I think continuing to bet here has a good amount of merit for our opponents. He is in the blind, so we can have any 2. It's not like if he has an 8, it's most likely going to be 8-7, 8-9, or 8-10, as it would be if he had called a raised or raised himself. The ranges are much less defined when we've seen a free flop. So under normal circumstances, this would be a great card to keep betting on because his 1-pair hands have probably made 2-pair, but his range is really kind of scattered and random on this board, so maybe checking to show weakness is alright. I think I like just going bet, small, a third to half the pot on the turn and river to go for max value. And here when we get raised, it's a little bit gross because he's representing that he has a flush. But also, there's a good chance he would just bet the turn if he had a flush, and getting 3.3 to 1 with a hand this strong, we just can't fold. Also, in these major events where there are a lot of satellite players, and especially on a more recreational filled site like Bovada, people are just going to make random plays to try to take away pots from you in spots that really don't make a ton of sense, and you'll see a lot of that. on these sites. So on sites where there are a lot more like random players, a lot of weak players, you just have to be willing to click the call button more often, because the thing that Dan Harrington referred to as, I think it was the random idiot factor. It's the theory that even a really good, really solid player every once in a while is just going to randomly tool out and bluff at a spot. So when assessing ranges, he always assumes like at least a 10% random bluff factor when, you know, breaking down the ranges and doing the analysis. So in spots like this, on sites like this, in events like this, you might want to take that 10% and bump it up to 15, 20, 25%, because people are much more erratic, they're much more loose cannons, unstable, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I think we always have to call this river. This time we happen to run into a better hand, but it's not like it was for all our stack. We were getting fine odds and unlucky to get coolered in such fashion. But hey, you know what the best part about these videos is? Even when we get short stacked, we know we're going to make a comeback, and it's really kind of motivating to see people get short and just come right back into it. I know for me personally, there have been a couple of tournaments where I started to get really short, and in the past I would have given up, but I'm like, hey, I remember that time that Roscoe ran it back up from, you know, less than 20% of the starting stack to win the event, and it got me to hold on. It got me to believe more and just have faith and play my best. And I've spun those stacks up real nice. Anyway, here we got Ace-4 offsuit. Blind versus blind, we are likely to have been dealt the best hand, and with a potential better than 20% chip up, I think a reshove here is perfectly fine. Calling, playing a pot in position, taking 3-1 preflop is also perfectly fine as well. With hands that don't flop as well, like ace-rag, I like leaning towards the reshove more often. But it really depends how deep your stack is. Like, the less deep you are, the more shallow you are, the less valuable your stack is, the more inclined to just be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just going to reshove. And we can see that the guy opened with Jack Deuce. This is actually pretty cool that we can see all the cards. I quite like that. Okay. Reshove called. We got Ace King. He's got King Queen. 3-1 favorite. And we double. Back up to 6,600. 30 big blinds. Right where we want to be. And now the antes are in play. Things will get interesting. This is a spot where we're getting really good odds. And even though our hand is pretty weak, 10-2 suited, we probably can profitably defend it. Obviously depends how you feel about your post-flop play, how you feel about your opponent. We did see this guy open Jack-2 offsuit, blind versus blind before, assuming it's the same guy. So, you know, he's opening pretty wide. We could get away with a lot there, be it 3-betting or flatting. Really like this flat pre-flop. 20 big blinds and change with a hand that can flop quite well. Great for flopping top pair, and, you know, dominates a good amount of people's cutoff opening ranges. So I really like Hugo's choice to flat here rather than 3-bet. There's no real need to narrow down our opponent's range to the stronger holdings. And if we 3-bet and get 4-bet, well, we don't really want to have to fold a hand like King Queen. So to 3-bet and have to fold it would suck, and to 3-bet and have to call the 4-bet for 24 bigs if we think the guy's 4-betting range is rather strong is also pretty shitty. So for all those reasons, we're very down with flatting. And once we're check 2 with top pair, we're obviously going to bet, try to build that pot. And interesting, this guy doesn't even think about it with mid pair. And this guy doesn't think about it with bottom pair. But would you guys, being out of position in a 4-way pot, really want to peel? Be interested to know if those guys were in position as opposed to out of position, if they would have had any interest in peeling. Looks like we bet. Sorry, the replayer is like kind of glitchy. But we do have a straight. We have a Broadway straight, and we bet it for value. And I like Hugo's small sizing there. if we're to bet really large, like, let's take the extremes. If we bet 2 or 3x the pot for all in, our opponent, in theory, should only really be able to call us with flushes. Because he has to assume when we're betting very big that we're not doing it with too many hands. So he needs his strongest hands to be able to call. If, on the other hand, we bet the minimum, 250, our opponent's now getting 12 to 1, you know, he can probably call us with even just a random queen or a random king because the price is so good. And if we're ever bluffing, he doesn't want to fold those hands that are beating those bluffs. If, however, we bet somewhere in the middle, you know, as you go along the scale, you go from him being able to call you with a pair of queens or a pair of tens to the point where he can only call you with his flushes. So somewhere in between is his straights, somewhere in between is his sets and two pairs and all that fun stuff in there. So with this bet size, what Hugo accomplishes is that he's going to get called by some hands that are not a straight. The other option with this hand is to bet so big that even if your opponent has the ace for the straight, that he may choose to fold it. You pick up 2,400 instead of 1,200, assuming you would chop, but you have to risk a good amount. And you want to be pretty certain your opponent doesn't have a flush if you're going to try that play. Anyway, Hugo goes with the third pot bet and gets looked up by two pairs. So, well played, well sized, well deserved. We got 3-bet here. I'm very down with just folding the queen jack off out of position. It's a hand that is easily dominated by a value range. And hold on, I should pause. It's a hand that's easily dominated by a value range, for sure. And I don't know how hard this guy's going to barrel queen or jack high boards, and the lighter you're peeling pre-flop, kind of the more value you want to be able to get when you do hit. And queen jack, just really bad reverse implied odds. You're most likely going to win a small pot or lose a big pot, and that's just not what you want to be doing in tournament poker or in poker in general. So here we have an open from the cutoff who has about 16 big blinds and then is 3-bet from the small blind. Personally, with this much action ahead, I would generally lean towards folding. If we're certain that the opener is very wide and that the small blind is capable of 3-betting wide, then this is a nice hand to cold 4-bet bluff with. And once we cold 4-bet to any amount, you know, 3,000, we're going to be priced in to call off. So if you're going to cold 4-bet bluff this spot, be prepared to play for all your chips. King Queen suited is a decent hand for playing all in pots if you think about the range that'll get it in against you. You know, a lot of 9s, 10s, jacks. Yes, ace, king, and ace, queen, but we block some of those, so it makes it less likely. Dreaded aces, but what are you going to do? And Hugo goes for the jam. Well read of the situation, takes it down. Now, the fact that he had king, queen suited, that's great, but that's just the backup. That's if he gets called. Hugo's goal in this pot is to take down 2,600 chips with no showdown, thereby increasing his stack, 28% or so, which is huge. If he happens to get called, he'll play, a 16K pot with whatever, 35-40% equity. So the backup plan ain't bad, but the main thing is to identify that you've got loose players. The other big thing is, even if the opener isn't opening that wide, once there's a 3-bet and a 4-bet, he has to fold a ton of his opening range. Like 9-10 suited is not a light open from the cutoff by any means, but you still can't do shit when you get 4-bet. Know what I'm saying? Anyway, top pair, good kicker. This guy check shove for the pot. Easy call. Easy call. He can do that with any pair. And straight draw, and most of the aces he has actually are worse than ours because he'd probably 3-bet his better aces pre-flop. So now we're up to 14K, which is really nice in these tournaments. Bodog's tournaments, or Bovadas, whatever you want to call it. They're the same site. And that's the minimum loss there. Don't know why this guy's checking back the turn, but you will see a lot of weak play on this site. That's just something about it. Anyway, the structures on this site are ones where the starting stacks are pretty shallow. In the main events, they're fairly deep at 10K, but in other than like the Sunday main events, the starting stacks are quite shallow, especially in the turbos. What do we got here? Limp call for 12 big blinds with King 9 off. Cool. Good old Bovada. Yeah, the structures are such that pretty short stacks, pretty shallow stacks, and I guess we folded here pre-flop. Again, sorry about the bugs. Are we just not playing? And they actually skip quite a few blind levels. So if you're used to playing on full tilts or poker stars or even AAA for that matter, but primarily the other two, if you choose to play on stars or on Bodog, you will notice that the tournament progresses much faster. They skip a lot of levels, and therefore things are faster, stacks are shallower, and it's really important to be comfortable on your 15 to 20 big blind game. Okay. When we 3-bet a hand this strong, we're not folding. Yes, we can be afraid that our opponent may wake up with a bigger pair than us. Oh no, my poker stub's expired. All right, let's see if I have the alternative. Yep, we're gonna do it with Equilab instead. They're like, oh my god, I've been looking so long for a version of Poker Stove that works. You have it right here. I do. And it's pretty much the same program but a little more powerful. So even if we look against the super strong range, we still have 37%, which isn't that far off from 40%. And if we go back to our table, we're getting jammed on. We need 37.7%. It's a break-even call. And that's if he only has super nutted hands. He may do it with some worse hands as well. So if we're going to 3-bet 9s, we definitely have to call. When he 4-bet shoves when we see that our opponent had 6s. I think that's something you're going to see in 6-max tournaments, is people getting it in pre-flop a little too wide because they're like, oh man, it's 6-max, I got to play more hands, I got to play really aggressive, and they just like tool out for way too many big blinds way too often. Here with the much weaker pair, we do not have to call off to the shove from our opponent. Why can't we see his cards but we see everyone else's? Okay. I want to continue talking about the structure because there is some really good value in the tournaments on Bovada. For anyone who, he folded a better ace to us. This is great info. This is going to be really fun when we go to the final 2 tables and start watching every hand. So for anyone who plays turbos, or hyper turbos for that matter, you're going to love the structure of these tournaments. Because everything's so fast, the stacks are extremely shallow, and much like 6-max, most people do not know how to play short stacks, shallow stacks very well. So if you're someone who knows your push-fold ranges, you know your call-in off ranges, you know your reshove ranges, all that stuff, you're going to be able to do very well in these tournaments. If, however, you like a really deep stacked, slow structured tournament, they're hard to find on Bodog. On the turn here, I think we should probably continue betting with our set. This guy has, defended out of the big blind? So he can have all his King X, 3X, 2X. If he has an ace high, he's now turned a gut shot to go with it. And if he just has a random club, he's probably going to call another bet if we bet half the pot or less. So I think it's a spot where we should definitely go for value. If he does happen to have a flush and check raises us, the smaller we bet, the smaller his check raise will be, and therefore the more able we will be to make a call. We check back, and on the 4th club, definitely shouldn't bet, and we lose a small pot. We would have lost a slightly bigger pot if we had bet the turn, because this guy was going to call, but you know, that's being results oriented. We still could have extracted some value from a hand that we were beating at the time on the turn there. Okay, blind versus blind for, what's he got? 24 bigs. We're just not folding ace 10. If you think about, this is the spot where you should be reshoving the widest, because you only have one player to get through, which is the small blind. There's no one who can wake up behind to ambush you. And the small blind, because he only has to get through one player and is getting great odds, is going to be opening a pretty wide range. So you are dealing with one of the widest ranges you're going to be facing. Sometimes the button will be wider, but sometimes people play the small blind even wider. And you have no players behind you who can ambush you. So in this spot, you should be reshoving your widest range. If you were looking at your reshoving ranges from every position, the big blind versus small blind is where you're going to have the biggest one. And if you take a wide reshoving range and run it up against ace 10, then, I don't know, we'll just give him 20. Yeah, there we go. Oh, wow. That's cool. And let's just calc it. 53, we're favored. Anyway, people are going to be super wide in this spot. As you see, king 9 off, and we hold. So yeah, that's where you should be playing your widest for reshoving, and also for that reason, since other people are probably going to be doing the same, you should be calling a large chunk of your opening range from the small blind. Queen 10 off could open, but don't need to. It's definitely kind of like the worst hand you might want to think about opening. I find that Queen 10 and Queen Jack are actually pretty overrated hands that can cause a decent amount of trouble when overvalued. Actually quite a lot of trouble when overvalued. Here with the 9-10 suited, we can go either way. I think it's a hand that is strong enough to just take a flop. If we 3-bet and get 4-bet, it's kind of unfortunate. I don't want to play a massive pot with 10 high pre-flop, even though I got the straight flush draw. And at the same time, I don't want to have to fold it. I don't want to fold a hand that's pretty, hand that can flop well and make a lot of equity post-flop in this spot. All that being said, it's a great hand to semi-bluff with as well, and it really depends on the small blind's tendencies. You know, if he's opening too wide and folding to 3-bets real easily, we want to 3-bet him a lot. If he's opening the small blind a lot and barreling off really aggressively, then we want to have a bunch of slow plays in our flattening range. If he's opening the small blind a lot and check folding too many flops, then we just want to flat everything. And so on and so forth, etc., etc. So I don't know exactly what his deal is, and Hugo's going to know better. He 3-bets, takes it down instantly, no showdown. Guy's folding a6, and yeah, cool. We are, you know, we're the chip leader on the table, and we've seen twice now people aren't, you know, super eager to play 3-bet pots. I mean, ace rag's a pretty shitty hand to be playing 3-bet pots with anyway, but still. Okay. Interesting spot. There's 1,600 in the middle, so if we reshove, we can risk 7,200 to win 1,600, so 25% gain there. We're also getting really good pot odds, so we could just flat call and take a flop. If this guy's opening super, super wide, I think reshoving all in is a fine play, assuming that he's opening super wide and folding too much to reshoves. If, however, he's opening a lot of hands, but he's calling off with a lot of them, then I don't know if I love running it with the ace-5, in which case we can play a lower variance game and just call. Hugo decides to shove and gets it through. Our opponent had ace-4. So we folded him off, you know, a chop, effectively. Raise and take, and guy's not opening king 10 under the gun. You're going to find if you play these tournaments that people play way too tight, overall, bluff in weird spots. Like, they just play pretty poorly overall. And we ISO and take that down. Like, this guy just limp folded the button with 6-8 suited, and the guy in the small blind's like, yeah, I'll complete, and then just fold when I get raised. And the guy didn't open under the gun with ace-9. The guy didn't open the cutoff with jack-10. Like, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. People just do not play kind of correct ranges on this network for the most part, or at least not in this event. But this is a $200 six max. So, enough said. I think I'm going to wrap up part 1 here. You know, we got 30K. We're about 30 mins in. It's my first vid in 3 weeks, but I'm just going to keep doing some more and more and more and get back in the flow. So I apologize if there was a little rustiness. I apologize if things weren't as smooth as you are used to them being, but I promise you I'm going to get back in the zone rather quickly. This transition won't take much time, especially because I'm coming from a much stronger place now and a much stronger foundation than I was when I started making videos for you guys a year and a half to go. So be excited, be very excited for what you are going to see with that. If you are interested in trying out Bodog or Bovada, I've put a link in the video description for both. Bovada is open to Americans, and I think Bodog is open to Canada. Not sure if rest of the world. And they have one other site for Asia, which I'll also link as well. And that's that. That's going to do it for part 1. So please leave your questions and comments below. I'm going to make an effort to answer as many of them as I can and really get back in the swing of things. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And when you're done with that, you know what to do. Take what you learned, go out there, and get stacking.
Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. Stack it up, cash it in, damn I win again. Many friends come to play, cause I'm on the internet. Better yet, I flop the turn and take a chance upon the river. I'll bluff you with the 7-2 offsuit, whatever's clever, call you all in while your chip stacks falling. Better believe the dealer, cause the game just started. Don't know the rules, you bet it all and then you risk it. If you wanna learn it, you should go online and hit up Gripsit. Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. Ever since a young cat, want a pocket stack with cash in the fast stack, crammed in the clam clip. Gotta get the action, gotta get it stacking. Dollars on the noggin, want a lot of transactions. Started as a little retarded, now with the knowledge, playing cards, flopping, bombarded cause it was harder than I thought. Then I got on Grips.com, asking and got what I needed to be to me get it stacking. Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com, tell you how to get stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com, tell you how to get it stacking.